Go live.
We're live.
Hello,
We're
Allison.
live. We're
We're
excited.
live.
That music always makes me want to take a kickboxing class. Very specifically.
Specifically kickboxing. Not
Yeah, just the-
taekwondo, not yeah.
Mhm.
I'm with
Every
you.
time.
I hear it.
Every time.
Hi, Allison.
Hi, Matt. How's it going?
I'm so excited about today's PairPod. I'm so excited.
It's fun when PairPod ideas like are born out of real life, messes
Mhm.
that somebody here
Challenges,
makes.
real life challenges, issues.
Me.
The reason that I'm
As-
excited. What?
I was gonna say, as Taylor Swift says, it's
Mhm.
me. I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Yes, Taylor
Um,
Swift.
Thank you, Taylor. So the reason I'm so excited about this one is we're delving into something that we both love very much, which is tabletop role playing, and something that has been a necessity for us and our game in the Dungeons and Dragons system.
Yeah.
System. Is having what they call a virtual tabletop, right? Because we started playing together during le pandemic, and like many other people did, and there was just this mad blossoming of work on virtual tabletops, and what that means is, if you think about Dungeons and Dragons, let's just keep it to something everybody understands. Stranger Things. Episode 1, all the kids are around a table. They've got little miniatures. They're talking excitedly and so on and so forth. And that is, what they call a tabletop, hence tabletop role playing. But, obviously when you have the chance, the scary opportunity to make someone sick, you don't want to meet in public. So what do? You get on Zoom and you have something that tries to simulate a tabletop, right?
Yep.
There's so many now out there, and so many good ones out there. I mean, even at the beginning of 2020, it was
All
it was
theater
kind
of
of
the mind. Yeah.
pretty much. It was there were some kind of like Roll20 was around, but for the most part, it just really kicked into high gear, the development, and man, there are some beautiful nerds working on tabletop role playing, virtual tabletops. Some good ones.
And
Roll20. Yeah, go.
I was just gonna say, so our game in 2020 was all theater of the mind. So for like the
Yes.
first 6 months we played, I didn't know what a VTT was.
Right.
Am I supposed to admit that out loud?
No.
Because we just in Zoom would sometimes our dungeon master would pull something up, share a screen, and we'd all draw X's on his screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there were VTTs in existence. I just didn't have the joy of playing on one. I think Roll20 was our first game with Tabletail was probably
yeah.
it.
It might, yeah, could be. And then we
Which
started
was that
playing.
fall. And so yeah, there's Roll20, there's Shard. You've
Shard.
played around with all of them.
I've played around with all of them.
Foundry.
There's Foundry VTT, which is another favorite of mine. Another huge is Fantasy Grounds is a huge one. They all have pros. They all have their challenges. They're all
Owlbear Rodeo.
Owlbear Rodeo came out, which is a delightful, super simple one. We can get into a whole episode about like why and which virtual tabletop you want, because you're right. I've played in all of them. But in the in 2020, the end of 2020, I kept a search going for the one that felt really, really good to me. Now, Foundry is one that I love very much, but Foundry Virtual Tabletop is very involved, very detailed, very, very, very powerful. It's I admit that Foundry is not something that you kind of set and forget. It's not something that you just walk into and go. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's some, and people could definitely argue this, but there is a lot of thought that has to go into it before you sit down and play a game,
Yep.
in my opinion. And I love that. It's very nerdy and it's very, 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 very powerful. But when you don't need that power, when you just want to get the game going, you just want to play, my very, very favorite has become Encounter Plus. It is a virtual table. I know. Poop, 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 pew, pew.
Where's your sound machine when we need it?
I know. Yeah, well, it's here, but we'll get to that later. But Encounter Plus, for me, hit the sweet spot for extensibility and ease of setup. It is one that is never on any top 10 list. I've never seen it. I don't even remember where I found it. One of its challenges, like the drawbacks as far as it making top 10 lists, is the fact that it is only Mac and iPad or iOS based, which I know cuts out more than half of the population. But that being said, it is just a freaking delight. It is a one developer jam. So, there isn't as much development going on as there would be in a Foundry, which has a couple of devs at this point, and Foundry is open to like plugins and other kinds of user-based extendabilities. But there's just a joy in using a Mac and iOS-based virtual tabletop, and it's so well thought out in a lot of ways. I really, really, really want it to gain more traction and more people know about it, and which will, give the developer more money, which allow him to spend more time. The other cool thing about Encounter Plus at this point is they have a super active Discord channel. And in that channel are nerds that are at the same level as the developer, and they are working with him sort of on like as a side hustle to build out some things that you might be missing, in other, in a app that can be super simple. So they fill in some of the blanks that have been really just, it's magic what these guys do. Anyway, so Encounter
Killer
Plus.
Diller.
It's Killer Diller. And, so I would say that if you know what we're talking about virtual tabletops, period, you might, and you want something dead simple, Owlbear Rodeo. And then if you want something super, automation heavy and beautiful, you got Foundry. And in the middle is this sweet spot where Encounter lives. I find that I use it more and more and more. You have started using Encounter Plus. And one disappointing thing about Encounter Plus at this point is that there's not a ton of tutorials, certainly not tutorials that are up to date. So you and I were hoping maybe we could change some of that.
We have decided to be the change we wish to see in the world. That's it. Exactly. We want to be the change that we wish to see. So we were playing together the other day. You're a burgeoning dungeon master, very fine one at that, and you had some questions. Now, the cool thing again about Encounter Plus is that you were able to get the job done. Like, you didn't have to get a rocket science degree or learn about JavaScript in order to make this thing work. You could get in, but there are some kind of quote unquote hidden things because the tutorials and the documentation is not as robust as it might be elsewhere. Yeah. So I was hoping that I could help you out with a few of these questions that you had. So where should we begin? Should we just jump into your We should just
view?
Yes. So I'll say my little 5-second plug for Encounter Plus was I tried Owlbear Rodeo first because it has the least amount of, it is the most basic that I at least have found.
Yeah, basic.
Basic in a good way. Like, you load a map, you throw some tokens on, you give your players a link, and they can move themselves around the map. I think that now there are some you can limit their sight based on, whether or not they have dark vision and walls and things like that. But it's not robust, animated, in depth, but it certainly is a get the job done. And I was like, I can do better. And then I tried Roll20 because that was the one I thought was going to be the easiest for me, the least technical member of Bivens Brothers Creative. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It was not a very intuitive platform. And I realized one thing Matt started doing that I loved is you started sharing the map kind of on all of our behalf rather than having us control it. We just would kind of in game call out to you, move me, 10 feet this way. And that was working really, really well. I realized when I was trying to be a Roll20 DM, I was spending half of the time in game coaching players and what to do and how to do it instead of being focused on the game. So I said, okay, we're going to eliminate that one because I don't want to be the team's IT resource. I just want to play, Dungeons and Dragons. So this is like, singular point of focus. I control the map. You can see it. That way you've got the visual guidelines going on.
Yeah.
So I leapt in, and I will say this for what was great about Encounter Plus. It is the most intuitive platform I have used to date for me. Without the documentation that I was craving, I was able to at least hobble my way through.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'd like to do more.
Let's do more.
Are we sharing my screen? Is that
Let's do it right
yet?
now. And click, boom. So we are now sharing your screen, and we are still in the corner. So I know you can't see what I see. Can you see what I see? But
so you just gotta.
If we get in the way, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Or I could probably just also get rid of us. But yeah, so. Again, this is not for Windows users at this point. I don't know whether the developer is ever going to come out with a Windows version. I don't think he has to. I think that the other nice thing about this VTT is that it's not incredibly processor hungry. Even with the fancier stuff, I find it to run very smoothly because it's built to run on an iPad and an iPhone. So you're already talking, in some cases, a smaller, more focused processor anyway. So it's a kind of a clean thing. But yeah, it is. We're talking about Mac, and we both have them. So if you're a Windows person, sorry.
Box.
If you're a Windows person, check out Foundry, but also check out Shard is another one that I'm very interested in. Shard, I think they're good people behind it, and I think they've come a really long way since they originally started. So that's another one on the radar.
So just kind of talking through the beginning, I came in, I created a campaign in Encounter Plus. I created little player by players with their tokens and put a couple of their, most basic things in. And then I came into content and I just started to load, I wanted to have, was kind of like flavor background, show my players the, kind of little town that they were going to be playing in. Yeah. And then, loaded, a couple of maps knowing eventually we were going to make our way into an enchanted wood and fight some baddies there. And here's where I need your help from this point forward.
Sure.
Kind of once we got into the encounter itself. So what would you? So I mean, do we want to walk through the process of creating a new map, locking, gridding, all of those things?
So I'll just say real quick that for those of you who don't know, Encounter Plus started off as really just being an encounter tracker for combat and probably some other basic, and it started off in a very simple way. That's another thing I do like about the dev is that he does build. He doesn't there's a healthy step, and the features that come out are not just boom, a whole new thing. It's a very, so what, but kind of even before I started using it, he had already developed this ability to have campaigns, and somewhat recently you can now switch a campaign. So if you play with one group in one world, you can store a bunch of stuff. And as you see on the, on your, move us over. to show the full thing.
Ooh.
Help! You can see that this sidebar here is an entire campaign of Allison's, right? Like it's called Legends of Lav's Keep, and in it you can add modules, which are adventures within the campaign. You can add maps, as you said, which are, obviously maps, usually battle maps, but they can also be theater of the mind images if you want. And then you can add encounters, which is a specific maybe combat that you can set up so you're not setting them up on the fly, right? You can save those, and then what else? You can group things together, and then another nice thing is you can add all of your players and the player characters in there so that they are easily accessible based on which campaign you're in. So you've done an amazing job of setting this campaign up, got all your players in there, you've got, your maps and your encounters and so on and so forth. But the thing that was noticeable the other day that you were like, oh, this is driving me nuts is you got a battle map, and with a battle map, you need a grid, right? You need a grid. You usually want that grid typically is like 5 by 5, and that's a way to sort of track combat and movement and so on and so forth. I'm gonna move my character 10 feet
over here,
right? So if your map isn't to the right scale, then it gets kind of wonky, right? So let's pick a map that you either have or haven't gridded.
Let's go with this one.
You...
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah,
I have not gridded Toberana Woods, so
great. So I was telling you before we started recording this. One thing to keep in mind about Encounter Plus, that when you run into a user experience thing that's like, why does it work that way? I have found, and this is not a knock to the developer, but one thing that has been a learning curve for me is that because this app started on iPad, there's some UX and UI that is like great for iPad and not quite as intuitive as far as the Mac goes. And we ran into that a minute ago. And I do kind of run into those things every once in a while, but like, we need to load this map, this Toberana Wood. And I don't know whether you've loaded it or not. There's two main buckets in Encounter Plus. There's your organizational system, like your basically your GM notes, right? And then there's the playing field. So if we go back to sort of the main screen and you've loaded this map, let's see, let's see. I think you're still in the library. Yeah.
Okay, so how do I get that? There's a question, like basic navigation.
There's a lot. So yeah, you can always get back to the library. It's always going to be a second window, or almost always a second window. So you can just click out, just click the red button, in fact, and just get
click out of this total?
Right, because it's a full window. And so somewhere else you should have your main Encounter Plus screen.
Let's find you. Ah, here.
There it is. Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Right, that's it. And so, yes, you did, in fact, load Toberana Wood. And so this is the main screen. Now, you can set up elements as shortcuts so that if you find you're going back to something a lot, then you can add it as a shortcut. Well, that's another story. But typically, and then one sort of like side peek of your library is if you click that book in the corner up here. Oh, for you it opens the full screen, which is interesting. I don't know. I don't even know if mine does that or not. It's okay. We won't worry about that. Or no, maybe it's this file. Is this folder? Is that what it is? That's it. Sorry. The book is the full library. It's going to open up a whole new thing. The folder is going to, from your campaign, is going to pull in a lot of the stuff from the campaign. Anyway, that's just a side note. So right now what I'm looking at is Toberana Wood number 1, and I see these white squares, and they're quite large, and your characters are quite large in here, and I'm looking at the scale that probably isn't going to be correct because you've got a bridge here that, you know, probably is at least 5 feet across, right? So we're, you know, so that's something. Yeah, so we need to change the actual like scale of this map. And there's a number of ways of doing it. If your map, and we should find one that comes with a grid that you've included, but this is fine now. This is the easiest way because it doesn't look like this map itself came with a grid. So you kind of like, whatever you want to do is great. But we'll tackle both of these. But yes, you're on the right track. If you can change the scale, which will change the actual grid, right? And you can change the size of the map. And if you change the size of the map, that's going to also, you know, in turn kind of change the scale, right? So oftentimes, if there is no original grid, I'm going to go and change the size first.
Like
so
here?
let's just go wild and change that to 100 pixels if we change the size. And another UI thing is you can't click and change it with one. You have to.
You just have to sit here and do this.
Yeah. Okay. And so now I'm realizing we're going in the wrong direction. So this map itself is on the small side, but that's okay. Let's do at least 25. So you see where we're going here.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of looking pretty good because if we use this bridge again as the
scale, it's 5 feet across. It's 5, 10, 15, a little under 20 feet long.
Right, and that becomes up to you. That gets to be something that that's up to you, which is nice. So a lot of times I'm like, wow, that grid is great, but man, it's so extra. So like you can do things like dim the grid. You can make it so you can change the opacity, which kind of and you can also change the color of the grid. You could make it a different color if you would ever want to. I don't play with that too much. You can make it dotted. And so on and so forth. You can actually add the unit in there, and that is calculated somehow in a beautiful way that I never remember how the units are used, but I think it becomes a nicety as far as So each token uses the Dungeons and Dragons 5e like medium, small, humongous size thing, and you can change that within the token. So I think the 5-foot grid would, be a factor in that. So look, we've got this map looking a whole lot better immediately, I think. Just for fun, let's move one of your characters onto this bridge and just see if that suits, or if you need to make it a little smaller. So they don't line up perfectly, and here's something that you can do. Let's say we're really focused on this bridge, right? If we go back to the settings, and you want this character to like be center of that bridge, this is where you could play with the scale for sure, but you could also play with the offset. And the offset's going to control the X and Y axis. So Y is up and down, and X is right. So you see where this is going. If you make it smaller or negative, or that, there you go. And again, it doesn't matter as much because this doesn't come with a grid. So unless you were playing a game where every single corner mattered, I would say I would be done with this map, right? good to go.
Well,
right?
So what you and I were struggling with the other day when we were playing was I had map that had the pre-drawn grid on it,
Right.
and it was wackadoodle.
It was.
Do we want
It was
to?
extreme. It was extreme. Yeah.
That's where I finally had to be like, nobody pay attention to the numbers that this is telling us. We're just gonna go. Trust me when I tell you. Do we want to like load in one of those maps really quickly?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. So yeah, and you naturally reached for the plus, as into I'm going to add a map, and that is one of those UX question marks that I'm not as comfortable with.
This.
Yeah. So what you actually need to be doing, yes, that will create a brand new map.
That was driving me crazy when I was getting things set up, because I was like, I want to access the maps I already included. Mm-hmm. Okay, so instead I'm going to library?
Yes, the library. And that's going to pull up another screen, and it's going to, it's going to get you. And so you go into your campaigns and you go boom, and you find the map that you want. Great, that's the exact one. And then you find, that loads it, and then the map is loaded. And so now if you go back, so now, and another nice thing here that I do like is the tab system. So you've got the one that we just worked on here, but then we've got the one that you just pulled in here, and you can flip back and forth. And when you encounter plus, when you are at the point where you're sharing things and you don't want your players to see a map that is upcoming, this is how you do that. You present one of the maps. You present one of the maps.
Play. I do that here. Click on the little...
You right click on the if you right click on the tab itself, it'll give you the option. So the tab itself here, it'll give you the option to present that tab. But again, we can get in there. Great. So here's a map with a grid. 1 square is 5 feet. What you do here is, I will say this, it's already a little bit of a wacky map, because a lot of maps might start with a full 5-foot square, right? Maybe. They don't have to. But here's one nice thing about Encounter Plus that this is a great tool. It's better than the one in Foundry, in my opinion. You're going to get out of this map settings. We're going to focus on this little tool icon here. And there's a little tool that they give us, which is Grid Align. Now, what Grid Align does is it does need a 3x3 chunk of tile, but you can already kind of see where this is going. You want to just, and then you're going to drag until that little thing matches up the existing. Yeah, you got it. And then and so boom, it throws them in, and it's, that's pretty sweet, isn't it? It's pretty sweet. Now this map is kind of proportionally large, but that's okay, because this is the way the designer designed it. This is the map maker made it this way. But that little trick with the grid align works on any map with a grid. It just kind of tries to scale it. Now, sometimes a map is enormous, with an enormous built, designed grid, and I will have to use the grid align at 2 corners, right? Because it will try to align it based on, the position of the grid align and based on the size of the map and so on and so forth. And sometimes it'll get pretty solid in one corner, but then the other corner will be off still. And somehow the math is done correctly, so that if you do grid line in one corner here and then the opposite corner, it tends to kind of square it up nicely. Finds the sort of the mean, the middle, the of that. And then you can go back and you can play with offset if you need to kind of shore it up even more. You can play with the
Well, and I ran into this on one map that I used. I think this one was in Roll20 when I was trying to use their grid align, and the map wasn't scaled correctly. So
Sure.
like each square was not actually 5 inches by 5. You know, it was like one was
Right.
maybe 4 by 4, and it was a disaster. So
It's
that was
tough.
honestly one of the reasons, like with this, like, so when we ran this the other day, I actually turned the grid off.
Yeah.
But now that at least I have, and I probably would on this one because you could see like the lines, and for me those were distracting. But at least now, like, you are within scale. So when I move you
Right.
5 feet, that
Yeah.
actually moved you 5 feet instead of it was telling us like you moved 60 feet when you'd moved 10. So.
Right. And okay, so well, here we go though. Here's something interesting. Now I'm looking at this, and I'm actually wondering about the actual design, because if one square is 5 feet, that's actually kind of a lot, isn't it? Like it still doesn't look proportional.
No.
It's correct though. It's correct now, but it's not proportional. So I would
Yeah.
almost, because what that would mean, this chair is only, well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So there's something that we can do. So you've got your scale here. What happens if we
Mhm.
bring the scale back up to 1? I'm just
Hold
curious.
for 27 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll be with you in a few.
Yeah.
Encounter Plus if you're watching.
And what that's gonna do? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What this should do, and I'll talk as we're doing this. What this actually should do is it should make the characters look more in scale, but it shouldn't
Yeah.
change the actual grid alignment. And we'll see. But I wanted to show what you can do to kind of make your characters fit into this, and using the grid align and trying to find that 5. All right, what are you at? 7? 0.7. Again, iPad, I think, is a little easier to kind of, but
It's validating though. Like these were so many of the things I was like, I'm doing it wrong.
sure.
Right?
Yeah, you're not
That
doing it
no,
wrong.
I wasn't doing it wrong. This is
So
actually the
one
way
thing
this
that I'll say
was.
as a DM is that there, you've got, maps come in all kinds of glorious ways, shapes, and forms, right? Like ones that you find online or ones that you pay for from makers. You know, some people are just super creative and they're just gonna bust out a map and it's not gonna be super accurate, and that's okay because
Yeah.
that's the world.
So close.
All right, 72, 3, 4, 8, 10, 9. Yay! Okay. So now let's take a look. So what that's done, we saw in real time, is that it's made the characters fit things like the chair, which I really, really like. And so now if we do the grid align, I'm curious to see what happens if you go back. Yeah, let's see what happens.
All right, so that's 3 by 3 right there. And so you can already see though how like the lines aren't exactly matching, which is
right.
what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Let's
now
see. Okay, so it goes back. Which is interesting. Now
you a tiny little gnome cannot sit in this chair because this is well, in fairness though, for like this is a gnome's house. So maybe that's
Sure.
why the scale is so wackadoo, because it's meant to represent a space where somebody of very small size lives.
That's a good point, but I know you can't undo in Encounter Plus, can you? You can't Command Z. Another challenge I've found.
Nope.
But this is what I was thinking. Sometimes when I run into this situation, because I really liked the scale of the characters before when you had it, where they seemed to fit on the chairs. So what I would actually do is I'd go to my grid align tool, and I would choose a different scale that is. So I might just maybe see what it looks like with 1 square or even just 4 squares, right? Because it's set up to do 9, but yeah, that might be a little too small. but we'll see. Or not, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too small. So maybe I would do 2 by 2 and see if that's a comfortable positioning. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Ish.
That's
Let's get a little bit better.
That's getting a little bit better. I mean, it just makes like if I put, if I put this character over here by the sink, it's a little bit more realistic. But again, this is going to be per map. You still have now, if we were in combat, you would be able to mark it a little bit better, right? Yeah, because you want, that's 10 feet, that's 15 feet. So it remembers that, and that's the important thing for combat, right? 5, 10, 15. So this character has moved 15 feet. That was what you were going for. And I think that is, in that situation is going to help immensely.
Yeah.
So that is how I handle like gridding up battle maps. So one thing that you were also wondering about is Fog of War. Fog of War. And like how to set that up or how to make it work. And Counter Plus has 2 options for keeping players unaware of things that future events.
And so you can hide or reveal by either drawing. So if you wanted to like freehand doodly dee, I could go like this. You click on it, you can reveal by then drawing back on that same area. So like I had you guys come in, I had the whole thing covered in Fog of War before you entered, and then I had like Fog of War here. So this is my cue as the GM
and to show
that y'all can't see this, but
what you can actually show what players will see, you can click this little button here.
Sorry, I'm not seeing your doodles.
There we go. Oh, you're not seeing my doodles.
Yeah.
Darn. Sorry.
No.
But you got the right button. And so so now I don't know if you see what I see, but this entire kitchen area is black, which is what you want it to be, because you have it in your Fog of War. You've got you're not seeing the doodles because you still got some screens that are full width.
I've got the full. Yeah. No, I figured.
I'm seeing them though. So yeah, you've got a nice Fog of War, and that little button will give you the player view, which is super important. So if you wanted to now fog this room up, because as you said, we as players came in through the door, and all we would see is the room. This little workshop area is behind a closed door, so we wouldn't be able to see through the wall.
But then Evan and his character Bud tell me that he wants to go into this door, and so now I can reveal that.
You got it.
But not this one until Juniper comes over here and says, "I want to go here."
Exactly. So that's a really nice way, a nice system, and I use that button a lot. The whole player view thing to see what y'all see. So that's one way to do it, and it's a perfectly great way of doing it. The Fog of War way of sort of showing bits of the map at a time. The other really nice way of doing it is, but a good bit more work, is setting up your maps to have walls, doors, windows, and in doing that, the app does the line of sight for you, right?
Yeah.
So it is smart enough to say this character is outside and cannot see anything in here. Oh, except for a window, they could actually peek through a window. And then the app is smart enough to say, ooh, this is kind of what they would see if they look through a window. Yeah. And that's another whole PairPods, but I would love to get into that with you, because it is genuinely a cousin of ASMR to sit down and wall up a map. Like when I have And this is why I know that I was born to be a dungeon master over a player generally, because I love walling maps. It is a meditative thing for me. And it's a lot of like little line drawing and then door drawing and window, but it's when you get it right and then you put a character outside and then all these like gorgeous, you know, lines of sight pop in. It's just,
You did such
just
a good job with
fills
that.
your
We
heart.
were in like a big boss battle this weekend, and we had there were different levels. So there was like a cliff, that some were on and under and over here, and it was really cool because like depending where on the map our character was, we could or couldn't see what was going on. So there was
Yeah,
a point where Evan had no idea that this swarm of undead and needle blights had moved onto
right.
the map. He heard that we were all over there fighting something, but he didn't understand like the gravity of the situation. So
Yes,
dramatic.
it is.
Until he
And
came around the corner, and it was a cool like testament to how well the map was set up that like we could be in a completely different, and each of our tokens, like I was
yes,
seeing something specific to me and like what my character could see from that vantage point based on where I was
yes,
standing, which is so cool.
yes.
So yeah, I do want to get to that eventually. It's interesting. So if any of my players are watching this, plug your ears now. Um, I'm setting up an encounter in a cave, and I'm just using Fog of War just to like wall off the cave until they come into the big
Yeah.
whatever. But I saw line of sight, and I'm like, that would be pretty cool if I could figure it out. But the problem is that you're playing in that game, Matt, so I can't have you help
Oh,
me on something that
whoops. That's
you're
true.
going to play. But I wanted it so like as you come around the corner, then you see what you're supposed to see.
Yes.
So I'll either
And
futz around with it on my own and report back, or that can be another lesson after you've played that module.
I think we should definitely do a lesson on that. I want to say real quick, there are some. I don't want to imply that there are no tutorials about Encounter Plus. There's a fellow
Hmm.
named Ducey who
Yes.
he spent some very serious time making some videos that I would have been lost without Ducey.
Hmm.
He's got a great personality, and
Yeah.
he hasn't necessarily kept up to date for all of them, which I completely understand. It looks like the man's got kids, got a life. We all have a life, but
How
you know,
dare he?
how dare he? But yes, he was kind of my champion at the very beginning, and I would love it if we could help to pick up the torch and spread this along,
Yeah.
because Encounter Plus does do that line of sight so
So
well,
well.
so
Yeah.
easily, so nicely. And there's things about this app that I don't even know about and use. That's why
Yeah.
we wanted to kind of make it a part of PairPods, which the concept
Yeah.
is that we learn together new things. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, do you have any last like map-based questions, or
This
or
is
are we
there.
feeling good?
So I'm feeling great. I see a lock. This was one stupid thing I was
Mm,
running to where I was like trying to move a token, and instead I kept moving the map around.
yes.
Is it
Oh,
as
yes,
simple
the
as doing
lock.
that?
Yeah.
That did fix it. Wow. So when in doubt, just mouse over
Okay.
all
So
of the little things.
here is a little trick to this, and I did have to check the Discord to see if I was the only human being that was experiencing this, and luckily I was not. But it is a known issue that sometimes, because again, built for iPad originally, works great on Mac, but the idea is your finger and touch, right? So there's a little disconnect sometimes
Gotcha.
in the
Yeah.
Mac. What I do to counteract that is simply zoom in real quick on the map towards the
Okay.
characters that I want to move, and that'll usually get them unstuck. What Allison's talking about is oftentimes if you're zoomed way out and you just want to move a
Yep.
character, sometimes it just doesn't grab
Yep.
on, right?
Yep.
So I have to like zoom out to kind of make that work
Yeah.
better. Um, but yeah, Juraz, the developer, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is currently working on a major set of upgrades that we're all super psyched about, and
And
yeah, I
just
just want more
so
people to use this.
Can I give a little sprinkle for maybe next time, just to kind of
Yeah.
like toot
Yes.
encounter pluses? So I've opened up an encounter here now. I've got one campaign, with these guys, and I've got another one here. So maybe we can go back into the Toberana Wood.
Sure.
It's so like this was the part that I loved. Once I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to start running encounters. It was so easy for little old me. Little old doesn't like to play around with things and just wants to intuitively know what to come in and do. You can just come in here, you click on, that was pretty intuitive for me to find, insert creature, and they have got such a robust database.
I know.
So I had to make my own NPCs, of course, to add in and create, and you can do that by just clicking the plus button. So you see, I've got a couple of them here that are loaded and ready to go. I'm not going to click on them because I don't want Matt to see, because he's going to play with these guys soon. But I mean, in this one, they were going to fight a wraith. I didn't have to do anything. Now I was able to come into the wraith. It's already got, all of the character sheet loaded. So all of the ability scores. So I knew their armor class when we got into fight and how many hit points and things like that. I did load my own token, cause I didn't want, otherwise it just was a big W.
Do you know the shortcut to that?
No, tell me.
Okay. So real quick side note, go up here.
I can't see what you're drawing on.
I'm sorry. Just go up to the top of this screen. No, to the top of the wraith. Scroll up to the top of. No.
Sorry.
Yeah. So click on the word wraith at the top, the header. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if it's going to show us on your screen. I know.
Well, it showed it. I'll drag this over here. So when I clicked on that, sorry, I have too many windows open.
It's a built-in link that he built in a little link that automatically does a Google search for 5e Wraith. And then beautifully, Allison, all you have to do is you click on the Wraith that you want. Let's say I don't know, whichever one you want. Yeah, great.
I'll go with this one.
And then, so you kind of want as nice of a image that you want, but that's good. You just drag that into the Wraith, on top of the Wraith stat.
All right. So
yeah, let's do this because it's fun.
Well, except for it's not letting me out of full screen.
Yeah, you've got full screen. You're in full screen modes.
Get out of there. All right.
Okay.
You go down there, and then is this one still in full screen? See, this one won't let me come out of full screen is the thing. It just is popping at me, so we'll have to.
Oh yeah, X out of this. Sorry, close out of that window up on top. Great. So we'll come back to this. Now you can. There you go.
Now I can do it.
Now go back to the Wraith.
We're gonna get there together. You guys are experiencing.
This will be helpful to someone watching. It'll be helpful to someone. Yeah.
All right. So I'm on Wraith, and I'm just literally clicking and dragging here.
And so I would pick the one. I would pick this one, and I know you can't see my doodling, but
I can now. I can see your doodles now.
Great. Yeah.
Oh my God. So I've been. Oh my God. See, that was not intuitive. I have been downloading.
It's a little secret.
Oh my.
Isn't that great?
I love Encounter Plus even more now.
I know. And I got that one again. I got that one from Mr. Ducey. That was a little trick I did not know, but it's really fun. I don't know how many, if anybody knows about it, but it's really fun. Yes. So sorry. That was a major detour, but you've got your Wraith here. So what it does, it pulls in the SRD, right? The Dungeons and Dragons 5e free rules, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not going to have every single monster that you own. So it won't pull from any of the special books. It won't pull from your say Exandria library. However, and we'll get to this in another one. There is an incredible gentleman named our George, and he
George R.R. Martin.
Yes, yes, and he has built something called Encounter Log, and Encounter Log will in fact take your materials from D&D Beyond that you've paid for, and pull them in, and that's the magic that is incredible as well. But yes, you're right. You've got the race. So, but we still haven't answered your original question, which was
what?
did you want to load this in, or were you just kind of pull it? You were just saying
I was just showing. Yeah.
how nice
I,
it is to have this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Now that I have it, I just do that, and now I've got the Wraith and my party. If I didn't have my party, and one of my favorite things is that I could just dump the entire party in all together. Like I was able to go in and just insert creatures party from campaign. I was just able to.
You can even right click in the map and do the same thing anywhere you want.
Yep.
Place party, place creature, and of course, that almost every number, every rollable item in the character sheet, in the stat block, is rollable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's really really well done.
It really is.
You also know that you can copy. So if you have two creatures that maybe you just want to change the name to, you can duplicate a wraith, and then rename it or give it different stats. And already the editing of stats, so adding new monsters is pretty easy and pretty intuitive. Mm-hmm. But there's another fellow in the Discord channel that has built this incredible module packing thing that allows you to just build monsters using Markdown, which is pretty good. Oh. So we'll get into all of this. We
have barely scratched the surface, but in the most exciting way. I'm so glad that you found Encounter Plus. I'm so glad that you started using it for us. And I'm so glad that this was the one that, after seeing what you were doing with it, I felt inspired to be like, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I could. So
you can.
It's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I just want more people to use it and to know about it.
Yeah.
Because I just think it is. I think it's my favorite. I have to say. I think it's my favorite. It's the one I keep coming back to. And I do love Foundry, and I'm really, really curious about Shard, but man.
I will say that I know you gave your little monologue to loving being a DM. I still love to be a player.
Yeah.
So we're going to come at this from, like, I would prefer, like, DMing is fun. And I did it because I wanted to introduce more people to D&D who, like, didn't have a party and a chance to play. I'm really making myself sound better than I mean to, but you know what I mean? Like, I want more people in the community. Yeah. And so, but if given the choice, if you're like, Allison, we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons this weekend. Do you want to DM or do you want to play? I'm going to choose play every time. Yeah. I will say that as a player, I love what you're doing with Encounter Plus so much, because it just takes it took all, like, sometimes I spend so much time on other ones, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to click, and you get that, like, analysis paralysis, and you get seized up, and so I will say, from a player standpoint, Encounter Plus with my D&D Beyond player sheet, so good. I also do. We should explore Shard too, because from a player perspective, I don't know about DM's perspective.
Not quite. Yeah. Not quite as much. Shard's pretty sweet.
It's the only other character sheet I'm even willing to touch. Like, I won't touch Roll20's character sheet. But I love, like, Shard. It's cool because you push a little button and you're in a wild shape, and all of your stats load for that wild shape. As opposed to having to find the window and stuff like that. So there's pluses and minuses, perks, drawbacks,
for every single
pros,
one.
cons for every single one. But I think you're really, really onto something with how great Encounter Plus is. I love it as a player, and I'm really growing to love it as a DM. So there's my commercials.
Yes.
Thanks for taking notes and, like, spending time with me on this.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, and if anybody's watching this and is like, oh my gosh, I have questions about this, please find us. There's comments below. There's bivensbrothers.com, Matt at Bivens Brothers, Allison 1L at Bivens Brothers, and we love answering these questions maybe more than any others. So we love talking about this stuff. We have a podcast, ADHD 20, which kind of is the intersection of this stuff and ADHD, which I also think Encounter Plus is for the reason you just mentioned, a fantastic, not too much futzing, just enough futzing for our brains.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
please let's make this a series. Let's get into Encounter Plus, please.
Yeah.
Until next time, Allison. Till next time.
Yay!